So we're going to put in our reference airport today. Our flight plan is calling us to go from Atlanta to Miami. So we're going to go ahead and type in the ICAO code for Atlanta, which is KATL. And that's going to go into the scratch pad. As you can see it coming down here underneath the line select key 6 left. This KATL in the scratch pad now needs to be transferred up to LSK2 left, in which it does. It takes me to Atlanta and gives me the latitude and longitude associated with the Atlanta airport. Interesting to note, if I come over here to the nav data book, nav data page, the nav data screen, if I push airport up on this particular panel on the nav display selector panel, it actually shows me in Atlanta right now. The airport actually pops up. The head of my triangle or my airplane says I'm in Atlanta, which is exactly what I want. So with that being stated, we've now done the first 2 items on the cockpit preparation checklist. That's all you need to do for the cockpit preparation for the FMC. From this point, we're going to move on and you would do the rest of your checklist, and then it goes into the FMC pre-flight itself. And that's where we're going to start with. It says route completed. Now, if you notice, when we say route completed, again, it's intuitive enough to know that after I do the pause init, it needs to know I want to do my route. So down here on the line select key 6R, I'm going to push LSK6R. Once I do that, it gives me Route 1, page 1 of 2. Origin and destination. Notice the boxes. The boxes must be filled in. We must put information in those boxes in order for this to work correctly. So again, we're leaving out of Atlanta, so that's KATL. LSK1 left. And then our destination today is Miami. So we go in there and type in the 3-letter the ICAO code for Miami, which is KMIA, and that goes in line select key or LSK1R. Our runway, according to our flight plan, tells us we're going to be departing off of runway 9 left. So we'll then push the number 9 and L in the scratch pad, and that's going to go right here in LSK2L. That was our departure runway out of Atlanta. And there we have it. Our flight number, as also indicated on the flight plan, tells us that our flight number is flight number 1. Simply pushing the number 1 on the keypad, and then we'll take that up to LSK2R. That now puts in our flight number for our flight today. Below that, company routing, we don't mess with company routing. Company routing simply means this. If the company has a route for this route, it would give you a series of letters and numbers. Simply input that. It would auto-populate your flight plan for you, saving you a lot of time and effort, but not in this class. Okay, so the next part of the route is, let's go and start programming the route in by simply pushing the button that says Next Page. If you notice, by the way, as the camera looks at this, every time I push a button, you actually see it being indented as well. When I push it on the FMC hardware, it shows up also here on the screen as well. So we're departing out of Atlanta. So the first thing we've got to go to is we have to push the departures arrival page because, again, we're departing and we've been giving a clearance today. It's going to be the Atlanta 9 departure, South 2, as filed to Miami. That's what's on our flight plan. So I've now pushed the departures arrival page right here. And it says, okay, what do you want? I've got a new index here, a new menu. I'm departing out of Atlanta, so I'll push LSK1 left. And now I get all these different departures. So it's the Atlanta 9 departure. I'll select the Atlanta 9 departure, LSK1L. All right. And I know that I'm going down over a fix that's on my flight plan as South 2 or SOTWO. Is it on page 1? I don't see it there, so I need to push the next page. And there I will find it in LSK2L, South 2. I will depress that button and select it. And the runway I'm departing from today, again, is 9 left. So you can see there's a caret there with the word SEL. And it says, let's select it just so it conforms and it reduces all that information to a very easy read. It gets rid of all my runways. Now I know for sure I'm off the Atlanta 9 over South 2 transition with runway 9 left as my departure runway. Okay? After you go there, we go back to our route, LSK6R. Okay? And next page to get to where my routing is. This is what I've programmed so far. So what's after South 2? According to my flight plan, the next place I'm going to be going is a place called Seminole, or Sierra Zulu Whiskey. I'm going there directly, not via, but direct to SZW. So I will type in on the keypad SZW, and I will now enter that into LSK4R, 4R, and it should say to me, oh, you want to go there? We'll go direct. and it comes up direct because that's what we want to do according to the flight plan. After SZW, I'm going to be going on a jet airway, in this case J43. So I will select J and the number 43, put that in LSK 5L, and it says, oh, sure, no problem. There's a jet airway, but where do you want it to go to? Because obviously there's multiple fixes along this way. We got to figure out an anchor point for it to go to. And we're going to use PIE, which is again on your flight plan, which is also St. Petersburg. PIE LSK 5R. There we go. Next page. Now we've got to PIE, or St. Petersburg, and it says, okay, we have ourselves an arrival going into Miami. So we go back to the departures arrival page. We select Miami's arrivals, and there we have it, and say, what are we doing into Miami today? What arrival is it? The standard terminal arrival routing gives us many different choices. In this case, we've chosen CYY7 as according to our flight plan. All right, and also we would look at that with the maps that we were given, part of our package. And CYY7 is the Cyprus 7 arrival. So we're going to choose CYY7 LSK 4 left. It says, great. Now, you're coming over the Cyprus arrival, but where do we start at? What's your transition point? It's actually St. Petersburg, PIE. That information is found as the fix prior to the arrival. So I will select PIE. And my runway for arrival, they tell me on my flight plan, is going to be 8 right. So I'll now select line select key 1R. Cyprus arrival, Cyprus 7 arrival, transitioning over St. Petersburg for the ILS 8 right. There it is. It's condensed it down for you. We'll go back to route. Hit next page again. And we're coming down then to the endpoint on the Cyprus arrival. Again, you should have your plate out in front of you, showing that DHP is the termination point of the star. That would be the Dolphin VOR. Okay, Dolphin VOR is the termination point of the Cyprus arrival. So after we get down there, where are we going to go? That's what this is asking us. The FMC says, where are you going? Well, Copra just happens to be the initial approach fix for the runway of arrival, 8 right. So all I got to do is I got to take Copra, initial approach fix, and move it up. I'll select 5 right and push it up to 4 right and close off that route discontinuity. You cannot have any route discontinuities at all when you're programming your FMC, because that means it doesn't know where it's going to go. After it gets to that point, it'll terminate and say, okay, what do you want me to do? If you don't tell it what to do, it's going to fly the last setting it was on until it runs out of gas or until you do something about it. Okay? Let's have a look at that next page. Missed approach point is at Barbara. We'll hold at Barbara. Okay, now let's see. We're going to go back here and we're going to check this route out on my navigational display by going up on the MD display and going from map to plan. And what that plan does is it allows us to look at our routing one fix at a time by simply pushing it over to plan and then hitting the legs page on the FMC. Every time you see now with the word, it says CTR with carets, that means it's in the center of the screen, of the ND screen, is what we're talking about here. Okay, so the first says 1400, there you see 1400, center of screen. By pushing the word step, LSK6R, I'll step through each of these. Vectors, that's going to show me nothing. Atlanta, now that will be in the center of the screen. Then South 2 will be the next one that centers in my screen. There's South 2, center, center. Step through these one at a time. Every single one will look at all these different fixes along our route of flight, all the way down till we get to Miami. Cyprus, Deeds, Warp, get into the Miami terminal area. The initial approach fix is coming up here in just a moment, and then to the runway, then our missed approach point and our hold is all right here. And that is done. I will go back to hit legs, get back to the first page, if you will, of my legs page, and now I will go back to map on the ND display. The next thing we have to do is we have to, again, agree as pilots that this is the routing we're going to fly. Based upon that, we're going to say, okay, just to your first officer or to your captain, I've programmed it, you've reviewed it. Now we have to activate it. So how do we activate? Just simply by pushing the word activate, LSK6R, it'll say, okay, you want to activate it? No problem. But before you do, before you execute, the white light is on above the word execute. This is your last chance to change it. Not really, you can change it once you get in there. We're now going to confirm that the routing we've put in is what we want. So we will hit execute. Once we hit execute, this line that you see here will turn to a magenta color. Hence the term children of the magenta. and we are programmed. The route is now programmed into the FMC, and this is what we'll be flying when we take off from Atlanta. On the FMC pre-flight, it does tell you to have a route completed, then it says route activate and execute, which is what we just did. Our next step on the FM pre-flight is going to be perf initialization. Perf initialization. So in order to get the perf initialization, we're going to simply push init ref. Once we hit the init ref page, it takes me right to my performance initialization page. Every time we start a perf initialization, we're going to start at the bottom left side and work our way up the column on the left. Bottom left to top left, and then across to top right. So today, according to my flight plan, my cost index today is 80. So I'll simply type in 80, and I'll put that in LSK 5 left. That number, as I've said before, can be between 0 and 9,999. The higher the number, the faster you go. That's about the only thing I'm going to tell you that you really need to know about the cost index. What it really is doing is it's giving the aircraft information at what speed to fly based upon weight, altitude, other factors. But in this case, 80 is what we're going to use. Now reserves is the next one. In order to determine our reserve, it is actually an addition of, or a culmination of 4 different values. In this case, it is the alternate, holding fuel, reserve fuel, and additive fuel. Our alternate fuel is for Opa-locka, which is 13,508 pounds. Holding fuel is 9,243 pounds. Reserve fuel is 14,674 pounds, and we have 0 additive. If we add up all 4 of those values, we're going to come up with a value of 37,425, which would be located across from this initialization called PFRM at the very bottom of the weight section on the weight and balance on the flight plan, which for me it stands for Plan for Reserved Minimum. Okay, so for a reserve minimum, I need 37,425 pounds. Notice I can only put so much in here with a decimal point, so 37,425, I'm going to just make it 37,400, so I would type in 37.4 and put that in LSK 4 left. So there's my reserve fuel. The next value it's asking me for is my 0 fuel weight. 0 fuel weight is also located in the weights tab. It's in the second column. It says ZFW, and it says 514,615, 514,615 pounds. Our max 0 fuel weight is 535,000 pounds, so I'm within the parameter of max 0 fuel weight. Again, it's asking me for 3 digits and a decimal point, and then a number. So I can't put that 514,615 in there, so I'm going to put 514.6. 514.6, that goes in LSK 3 left. That's my 0 fuel weight. Now, fuel, it says calculated. I know that I'm going to be dispatched with more than that. According to my flight plan, I'm blocking out, under the word block, it tells me how much fuel I need total. In this case, 69,250 pounds. This says 68.5 or 68,500. I'm going to change that to 69.2. So I'll type in 69.2. And when I change it and move it up here to fuel on LSK2 left, that's going to change from calculated to manual, because I've given it a manual amount of fuel. I've just put it by myself. You'll see that value change. The gross weight's 583,800 pounds. If we look at our flight plan, it says our takeoff gross weight is going to be 577,865. You take that 577,865 plus your taxi fuel is 6,000 pounds. That is indeed 583,800 pounds. Okay? So that number is with the taxi fuel. Our cruising altitude, according to my flight plan, says we should plan for flight level 370. That's the cruise altitude on the upper right side there, cruise where it says the blocks. All you have to type in is 370 LSK1R. So there we have it. We've got that in. Now the cruise CG is our next value we've got to look at. We were actually given that figure on our flight plan. They told us to plan a CG of 24%. So we're going to type in 24% in the cruise CG, and that's going to eventually determine our trim setting. So 24 is what we're going to go in there. Notice also, it says enable next altitude. Forget that because that's based upon our weight. Type in 24, and we're going to put it in LSK 4R. And notice it's going to be a bold number, not small print. See how it got larger? Because we've manually entered that. The next step in your performance initialization, after it says this on your checklist, it says thrust limit. And intuitively, thrust limit is next on your list. LSK 6R. We'll select 6R. and now we're given an opportunity to look at different thrust settings. In this class, I'm never going to have you do anything other than a full power takeoff, which is where we are right now, full power. It says I've selected a full power takeoff with a full power climb. It is armed, which is normal because you're not off the ground yet. But if I wanted to reduce my thrust, I could reduce either 8 or 20% to save my engines. You use a full power takeoff anytime you have a contaminated surface, a runway that may have water on it, slush, ice. You'll have to use a full power takeoff. Otherwise, you can use a reduced thrust takeoff, which is better for the aircraft in terms of its engine wear, hot sections. Wear and tear is the big issue, right? Obviously, the airlines want to save money. So reduced power setting is good, and reduced climb. Again, saves our engines. But we're always going to use a full power takeoff here. So we've selected full power, armed with a full power climb as well. Next thing on our checklist says takeoff ref. And if you'll notice here, it says takeoff. That is our next line, LSK 6R. We'll select 6R. And there it is, our takeoff page, takeoff refs page. In this airplane, we always utilize flaps 10 for departure. Notice the 2 boxes up here that are empty. That's where our 10 is going to be placed. So type in 10, LSK 1 left. And you'll see our V speeds now pop up. 126, 33, 53, and our trim and our CG. If you'll notice, all of my numbers on my ref speed are there, but what's more important is where they're not. And if you look over here, you'll see that they're not available to you here on your primary flight display. It says no V speeds. How can I have it say, yes, you've got V speed, but not over here yet? Simply because we have to arm those speeds. We have to tell it to confirm them. So what we've got to do is we have to push each corresponding line select key next to that number. So I'm going to line select key 1 right. Notice how big those numbers will get bold. 126 is large, 133 goes large, 153 goes large, and at the same time, we now have V speeds on our primary flight display. You can see them at the very top. 126 is the first one. The last thing we put in here is the CG, which we know is 24% from the last time we put it in. That'll go into line select key 4 right. Give it a moment to think about it. It says now your trim is going to be this value right here. There it is, 5.0. So we go in there and we would put 5.0 on the trim tab setting, which we can show you later how to do that. After you're done with that, the takeoff ref is completed. Next item in the checklist talks about VNAV checked. Okay, so VNAV. Let's have a look at the VNAV page on the FMC. What is this telling me? As we all know in the United States, below 10,000 feet, our max speed is 250 knots. So this is telling me right now in V speeds, in the V page, VNAV page, that below 10,000 feet, 250 knots is what this is going to adhere to. Once I break 10,000 feet to get above it, I'm going to go to 300 knots or 0.823 Mach as I climb higher. So this is restricting the aircraft to 250 knots below 10,000 feet. That's what I'm checking on, make sure. So that's correct. After that, it says prog checked. So we're looking now at the prog page, progression page, PROG. If we look at this, push that button, and it's looking at a distance here. It says 583 miles, distance to go, Atlanta to Miami. I do a quick comparison to my flight plan. It tells me my distance is 567 versus 583. I'm in the ballpark, probably because of the fact I have an approach in there that it's just not planning for that. It goes airport center to airport center. You know, there's a couple of variants there that would not be perfectly corresponding in terms of the distance. But you're within a ballpark, I would say you're fine. After prog, you go to legs and you say it says check. So now I'm going to just push legs page on the FMC. It takes me right back to the very first page, page 1 of 5 on the legs page right here. And you are programmed. Your FMC is programmed. Your navigational data display is programmed. Your V-speeds are programmed. Now we want to set up the mode control panel according to our departure plan on the Atlanta 9 departure. If we look at the Atlanta 9 departure, it tells us for runway 9 left that we need to fly a heading of 095, which is already put in the heading indicator up on the mode control panel, so 095 is correct. Under the indicated airspeed, though, we do want to put in our V2 speed, which we've figured out according to the takeoff data. I can go here, sorry guys, here, thrust, and there's my takeoff data right here. My V2 speed is 153, so I would put in 153. And that would be because in case I lose an engine, I have the ability to fly that speed. So 153 I've put in there. 95 is, of course, our heading. And also on the departure SID out of Atlanta, it tells me my altitude is 10,000 feet, which is already dialed into the mode control panel as well. So know the airplane, once we get it airborne at 400 feet, we say center command on the autopilot, and we have LNAV and VNAV armed, which I'll do right now by selecting this. Notice on the flight mode annunciator it says toga toga. When I hit LNAV and VNAV, they come up white because it's arming that system. We've just armed LNAV and VNAV, so at 400 feet above the ground, when I push the command button, center command on the autopilot, it will then take over LNAV and VNAV. If it will fly my altitude that I've commanded it to 10,000 feet, it'll fly my heading. It'll also fly my speed if required. But it's going to go for 250 because, again, I'm going to intervene on 153 if I've got an engine failure. That's why it's in there for a safeguard. But that is the programming of the FMC itself, and that is the end of that step.